Here at ARM Techcon. Who are you?
My name is Rick Merritt, and I'm the Silicon Valley Bureau Chief of EETimes. And that's part of UBM Technology, which is actually one of the sponsors of the ARM Techcon, where we're at today. So ARM Techcon is all about this pretty energy efficient processor core, family of cores that ARM makes, and the ecosystem around that does all kinds of stuff. You mainly know them for these wonderful smartphone devices. But they're also trying to get into this Internet of Things space, which is kind of really diverse and fragmented, and everybody's still trying to invent what it is. And actually they're making some inroads here into the server space. We've seen some stuff from HP, and we've got Dell over here, both showing systems that are up and running. They're not shipping them, they're not selling them, but they do run them in the labs. And someday there might actually be ARM servers somewhere in your cloud, as well as in your pocket.
So EETimes, is that electronic entertainment or no? What is it?
I wish it was entertainment, but it's more serious than that. It's electronic engineering time.
Engineering.
So it's for engineers who call themselves EEs.
How old is EETimes?
This is the 40th anniversary of EETimes. It's been around for 40 years. Can you believe that?
No, you didn't start it, did you?
I didn't start it, no. I've only been there for 21 years.
Really?
Yes, the people who started it have passed on. God rest their souls. But it's a great publication. I love working there.
So, as a publication, what happens there? What do you talk about?
We have reporters like me who come out to events like this and snoop around to see what's going on, and we write about trends and we interview people, and we're not used to being interviewed ourselves because we're usually the ones doing the interviews and asking the questions.
So do you get scoops and what's called scandals?
Yes.
And
my colleague Junko Yoshida just got a really great scoop about the Toyota accelerator problem, and she wrote about that story and got a hold of one of the expert witnesses, Michael Barr, who turns out to be one of our former employees. He used to work for Embedded Systems magazine and the Embedded Systems conference, and now he was expert witness in the Toyota acceleration case. So she wrote this great story about him and you know what was the problem with the car.
That means that people were crashing their cars and stuff.
Yeah, the accelerator was getting stuck, and the people are still trying to decipher exactly what the technical glitches were.
And do you also have scandals with American companies? I'm joking. How about Intel and everything is there?
We write about anything that has to do with chips. If it plugs into the wall or runs on batteries, we write about it.
So let's talk about some other story. What did you write recently?
What did I write recently? I wrote, today I wrote a story about a really interesting business model where a company called Arteris, who's exhibiting right down here, sold their technology to their biggest customer, which is Qualcomm, which makes some of the chips for the smartphones that we've been talking about, and because they love their technology, which was about network on a chip. So Qualcomm now owns the technology, they own the design team, but Arteris is still going to go out and try and license and sell that technology based on updates they get from Qualcomm. Kind of an interesting business model. Fun stuff happens in this industry, you know, that was just today's example.
How about yesterday?
Oh, here's another one, also from today. Barack Obama, the White House, is doing an Internet of Things challenge. They call it the Smart America Challenge. So the White House is basically challenging engineers and other people out there to develop some test beds for the Internet of Things and interconnect them together so that people can learn really how difficult this is and how much we need standards that don't exist yet. So the Smart America Challenge is out there, and we wrote about that.
So that was the two stories today?
That's
How about yesterday?
I can't remember yesterday.
You can't remember?
I can't
How about
remember.
the Intel making ARM chips? Did you write about that?
Yes, I did write about that. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So Intel has a lot of great fabs, and they can't fill all their fabs, so they're experimenting with letting other people make their products in their fabs, and one of them is Altera, which is a big FPGA maker. And these big honkin' FPGAs dump a lot of stuff in there, and including ARM cores. So it turns out that the next big honkin' Stratix 10 Altera FPGA is going to include 4 64-bit ARM cores, and Intel is going to make it on its 14-nanometer process. Kind of a strange bedfellows kind of a story. I tell you, funny things happen in this industry, but good things happen too.
Like more of this good stuff is going to happen? Like
for a while.
Do you think Intel is going to make a bunch more ARM processors? What do you think?
No, I don't think Intel is going to make too many ARM processors, but they're going to increasingly make things that compete with ARM processors. They're already making a lot of Atom processors, and now they got a new thing called Quark, which is even smaller than an Atom. It's about a Pentium 1, and they're going to be making that. They're already making that and trying to get into all these Internet of Things places that ARM is trying to get into too.
Why is Quark not ARM powered?
Because Intel loves its architecture, which is called the x86, and they want to get everything running on the x86. They want to conquer the world with the x86, and they already own the cloud, but they just don't have a really strong position in these really small mobile devices.
But, I mean, they can't really do it because everybody's working on ARM, right? And Intel is not bigger than the rest of the world.
Well, Intel is the biggest semiconductor company in the world, and not the biggest electronics company by any means, but the biggest semiconductor company in the world. And by comparison, ARM is really quite tiny, because ARM really just sells licenses to technology, whereas Intel sells whole big wonkin' chips and whole big wonkin' boards, and they make a lot more money, a lot more money.
But the ecosystem of ARM makes more money than Intel and is much bigger than Intel. Or if you add them all up.
No, if you can compare ecosystems, and that gets to kind of funny economics. So that's playing with the statistics kind of fast and loose. And I won't try to do that myself.
Okay. So where are we going right now? What are we about to do?
I'm going to go write a story.
Write a story?
I'm going to write a story about the cool things I saw on the show floor here.
Can you give the exclusives on the video?
Well, there's no exclusives. It's all out here on the show floor. You can find it yourself. I would go over to Freescale and ask them about wearables, the interesting stuff over there.
Yeah.
I would look behind you at Samsung and ask them about 3D chip stacks. 3D chip stacks. They have a wide I/O demonstration. That's where you take the memory and the processor, and instead of putting them next to each other on the board, you smack the two die right together, and you put the pins or you connect the pads together. And it's not happening in commercial products yet, but it's happening in labs, and they'll tell you a little bit about that.
Whoa. So that's for the Exynos 6 or what?
Yeah, maybe even Exynos 7, but they're not
something
saying.
Like that?
Yeah.
All right. Something more? Something more. What else can you talk about? No? Am I asking too much?
I can tell you about my colleague, Rich Quinnell, which just did a teardown of the Nest thermostat. Nest thermostat made by Tony Fadell, who was famous for making the iPod. So Rich Quinnell tore this apart, and he actually cut his finger doing it and bled all over the thing. It was horrible, but he's a heroic man. And he went right through the teardown anyway, despite bleeding. And he found out that the Nest has in it a Zigbee radio in addition to the Wi-Fi radio. So we expect that there's going to be a Zigbee Nest thermostat in the future, thanks to the teardown that Rich Quinnell, my colleague, just did and bled for.
Because I just heard earlier people were talking about Nest being something everybody talks about because it's so smart and it's connected to the web. So Internet of Things is a big thing.
It will be huge. We believe it will be huge. It's already pretty big and interesting if you look around at all the stuff that's out there and being connected to different stuff, but it's going to be even bigger, swear to God.
So I'll need to check your website every day.